The Nature of the Psyche, Its Human Expression, a Seth book, by Jane Roberts. Read by Martin John. Continuation Chapter 7, page 116. Session 781, June 28, 1976, 9:15 p.m. Monday. Author note: Seth devoted the first part of the session to a continuation of his introduction for Jane's Cézanne book, and he has yet to complete that material. Then, at 10:01, end author note. Now, dictation for the book, my book. In a manner of speaking, then, you use the language of the atoms and molecules in your own private way. You mark the universe, you impress it, or stamp it, or imprint it with your own identity. Henceforth, in a parenthesis, in those terms, it always recognizes you as you and no other. You are then known. In larger terms, while you speak your own language, the universe also speaks, quote, your language, as it constantly translates itself into your private perception. Remember, I said that you lived in your psyche somewhat in the same way that physically you dwell in the world. That world has many languages. Physically, you are like one country within your psyche, with a language of your own. People are always searching for master languages, or for one in particular out of which all others emerged. In a way, Latin is a master language. In the same manner, people search for gods, or a god, out of which all psyches emerged. Here you are searching for the implied source, the unspoken, invisible, quote, pause, the inner organization that gives language or the self a vehicle of expression. Languages finally become archaic. Some words are entirely forgotten in one language, but spring up in an altered form in another. All of the earth's languages, however, are united because of characteristic pauses and hesitations upon which the different sounds ride. Even the alterations of obvious pauses between languages make sense only because of an implied, unstated inner rhythm. The historic gods become equally archaic. Their differences are often obvious. When you are learning a language, great mystery seems involved. When you are learning about the nature of the psyche, an even greater aura of the unknown exists. The unknown portions of the psyche and its greater horizons, therefore, have often been perceived as gods or as the greater psyches out of which the self emerged. As, for example, Latin is a source for the Romance languages. Give us a moment. Using ordinary language, you speak with your fellows. You write histories and communications. Many books are meant to be read and never to be spoken aloud. Through written language, then, communication is vastly extended. In direct contact, however, you encounter not only the spoken language of another, but you are presented with the communicator's person as well. Spoken language is embellished with smiles, frowns, or other gestures, and these add to the meaning of the spoken word. Often when you read a book, you silently mouth the words as if to reinforce their symbolic content with a more emotional immediacy. The language of the psyche, however, is far richer and more varied. Its, quote, words spring alive. Its, quote, verbs really move. and do not simply signify or stand for motion. Author note emphatically. Its, quote, nouns become what they signify. Its declensions are multidimensional. Its verbs and nouns can be interchangeable. In a way, underlined, the psyche is its own language. Quote, at any given time, all of its tenses are present tense. In other words, it has multitudinous tenses, all in the present, or it has multitudinous present tenses. Within it no, quote, word dies or becomes archaic. This language is experience. Psychically, then, you can and you cannot say that there is a source. The very fact that you question, is there a God or a source, shows that you misunderstand the issues. In the same manner, when you ask, is there a master language, it is apparent that you do not understand what language itself is. Otherwise, you would know that language is dependent upon other implied ones, or what the two, or all of them, are themselves and yet inseparable, so closely connected that it is impossible to separate them even though your focus may be upon one language alone. So the psyche and its source, or the individual and the God, are so inseparable and interconnected that an attempt to find one apart from the other automatically confuses the issue. Take your break. Author note, 1101. Jane's delivery was quite intent. During break she picked up that the Cézanne material from Seth would be in two parts, one of these being in world views, the other more on Cézanne and world views. So what do I call the book? She asked. End author note 1125. The physical world implies the existence of a God. God's existence also implies the existence of a physical world. This statement implies the unstated, and the reverse also applies. To deny the validity or importance of the individual is, therefore, also to deny the importance or validity of God, for the two exist one within the other, and you cannot separate them. From one end of reality you shout, "Where is God?" And from the other end the answer comes, "I am me." Capitalize me. From the other end of reality, God goes shouting, "Who am I?" and finds himself in you. You are therefore a part of the source, and so is everything else manifest. Because God is, you are. Because you are, God is. On a conscious level, certainly, you are not all that God is, for that is the unstated, unmanifest portion of yourself. Your being rides upon that unstated reality as a letter of the alphabet rides upon the inner organizations that are implied by its existence. In those terms, your unstated portions, quote, reach backward to a source called God, as various languages can be traced back to their source. Master languages can be compared to the historic gods. Each person alive is a part of the living God, supported in life by the magnificent power of nature, which is God translated into the elements of the earth and the universe. End of dictation. Give us a moment. Author note, 11:40. Now Seth delivered some material for Jane, then closed out the session at 12:09 a.m. In session. And mahalo endlessly for listening.